Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Entrepreneur Motivation Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Bello. Today, we've got Mike Jackness on the show. Mike, welcome.
How's it going, Chris? Good to see you.
Great to have you here. I'm really excited I got a chance to jump on your show. And so I'm happy to share your story with my audience as well. And I've got your bio pulled up here just so the audience knows who we're talking to today.
This crazy internet dude.
Yeah, this crazy internet dude. He's been in online marketing for over 10 years. This was cool. I didn't know this about you. During the poker craze of the early 2000s, you ran one of the largest poker affiliate companies in the world with over 60 employees, and you own part of the Canadian Poker Tour. That's really cool. And then after Black Friday, the day Congress basically made it illegal for Americans to gamble online, and entered into e-commerce with treadmill.com. These are some great domain names, by the way. He sold that company in 2014. And since then, he started multiple other e-commerce brands with total revenues of over $7 million annually. And then today you're based in San Diego. You've lived throughout the world, including Las Vegas, the Cayman Islands, and out of a Class A motorhome while touring. I saw that. I was like, while touring North America, that's super cool. Yeah. That's on my bucket list for sure. I'm like, I've gone camping, but I would like to go glamping, where it's like you got a satellite dish and you can see cable TV and you're at the
Absolutely.
Right?
I love it. Yeah, we actually, so since writing that bio, things have changed a little bit. We actually are back in Las Vegas now.
Okay.
And we sold the Class A motorhome. We did that a while back, but we bought another motorhome. Now we got a Class B. So we get in the smaller spots.
One?
Yeah, just a smaller one. It's like a van. So it gets you into smaller places. And we've redone the tour again and get to see something different. The Class A, you're kind of on the interstate and in these big, like industrialized parks, like you go to a place that has like 400 RVs in it. And so we've been able to go to some of the state or local campgrounds and stuff like that and see some new things. So it's been cool.
That's really cool, man. And then your story with the poker thing, that really stinks though, because like basically a huge chunk of your business overnight, literally. I mean, that's like with COVID as well. A lot of businesses overnight, like everything just changed, right?
Yeah. I mean, we've gotten used to this. It's happened more than once. I think that I always say it's only a matter of when, not if, these types of things happen if you're in business long enough.
Right.
And I think a lot of what we're going to talk about today is like, how do you deal with this stuff? Because, it's what you do when these types of things happen that define your future. And some people just give up and curl up in the corner, and other people, turn around and make the biggest business they've ever had. And there's a lot of interesting success stories. Some of the biggest companies in the world have been born out of recession or, hard times. And so I prefer to be on that side of the coin. We haven't built something as large as Chipotle or something, but certainly had our kicks and kept on going.
Yeah. And I know when we talked on your podcast as well, you actually recently inherited or acquired a business as well. So, I mean, you're still making moves and you're growing your business. You're taking on new challenges. So I love it. Sounds like you're very well-rounded. I mean, I know we talked about this, having systems and processes in place is key because it's so easy to get very distracted. I would love to hear any of your thoughts on like what you focus on today. Like, what does your typical day look like?
Yeah, I mean, things are very different for me now than they were back in the poker days when I had 60 employees. And we have a company that's getting close to the same size now, but I run things very, very differently. Probably the biggest influence in my business career has been the book Traction, which really helps focus on these processes and of things of that nature. And after running a half a dozen businesses over 10 to 15 years, you start to see some of the same patterns repeat, good, bad, or indifferent. And I think it takes a strong person to admit things that you're doing wrong or identify them at least and try to change them. And one of the things I definitely realized I was doing was not necessarily going in a straight line. Or just I would bounce around like a ping pong ball all over the place. And that works fine when I'm a solopreneur, but as you get a team together, most people don't like to operate this way. They want to be told what to do, and
get a steady paycheck.
Get a steady paycheck, and complete the task that you gave them. Whether that takes a month or two or a year or whatever it might be. And so Traction really forced me to do that, and it's been revolutionary in our business. And so what it does is, and everyone can read the book and you don't have to necessarily follow it to the T, so we adapted it to ourselves. I mean, for instance, I don't really see a 10-year plan. The book, the first thing it tells you to do is go develop a 10-year plan. Like I can't even begin to imagine what a 10-year plan looks like in e-commerce or online marketing. I mean,
Right.
things change
It's
every
changed
10 minutes,
so
right?
much.
Yeah. And so we've adapted a 3-year plan. That's like our furthest thing in the future,
Okay.
for us. And then we break that down into a 1-year plan, which we take very seriously. And so at the end of the year, we lay out what we want to do for the next year. And then every quarter we break things out from that 1-year plan to make sure that we're marching along. And so I try to think in 1-year chunks at this point,
Right.
and certainly no more than 3 months. And so my job for the most part is every 3 months I'm working with my COO and our leader in the Philippines to make sure that they're putting together the right goals and objectives to meet the 1-year plan. And for the most part, I just let them go do it. I have to have responsibility that if I set a set of goals to do for the next 13 weeks, that I can't mess with them. I got to let them do their thing. And that's what Traction has really allowed me to do. At first, it was very difficult because I'm not very patient and I like to have control. And I also like to have something that I think of happen immediately. So it'd be like, in the old days, I would think of, I want to go do this new thing on the website. And I would go tell some employee to go do it or help me, and stop what they're doing. And then you get in these conversations about, hey, well, Mike, like you asked me to do this other thing. So which one is actually the higher priority? It's always embarrassing.
Right.
You're having to answer these questions for your employees. And now with this format, for the large part, I just leave them alone. If something urgent comes up, obviously we want to be nimble and deal with these things. We're still a small company, and I want the advantages of being able to do that. But for the most part, we let them go do their thing. And so day to day, I'm looking at higher level things. I'm thinking about the next quarter, like the things I want to make sure that are on our list. Strategic acquisitions. We work on ECOMCREW. It's our training site and podcast, things that only I can do, and try to fill my days with the things that only Mike Jackness can do, and anything else that I can delegate, I try to do that, and then let them do their thing. And so, and there's other things, like I'm looking at financials, obviously, and other things of that nature. But the reason we bought another business is because after, a year and a half of operating this way, 2 years of operating this way, it really freed up my schedule. I went from having 80 hours of stuff to do a week to 10, and we do more, sell more, we're more profitable. It's awesome. And it's amazing how, if you find the right formula, it can really make a big difference. And so it's allowed me to also now buy this new business, which I do spend a lot of time on right now, as we try to figure out a way to kind of merge it into our current operations. And so I have been doing a lot of the, tire kicking myself on the new business to learn it and kind of absorb it into our current operation.
Yeah, that's incredible. Because I guess I have a friend who said that he's a filler. I love that term. You see blank space on your calendar and you fill it up with stuff to do.
Yeah.
And so I love how you said you were working 80-hour work weeks, or at least you had enough work to keep yourself busy. And the way that you built the systems and team and the Traction formula brought it down to 10, which even at that point, when you're twiddling your thumbs, you're bored, you want to do something, but you know that your time can be better spent focusing on a new challenge or a new puzzle to put together. So that's a really cool nugget there for our audience, is that even if you get this lifestyle business you're looking for, chances are you're going to want to find the next problem to tackle. And so that sounds like you're growing through that acquisition of that new business.
Yeah. And I think it's an addiction. Just as much as anybody is addicted to alcohol or
like
the drugs.
Elon Musk with Tesla and SpaceX, right? It just never ends.
It never ends. One of the other things that really helped me at the same time as Traction was this thing called the 4-burner theory. And so basically what the theory is that in life you have 4 burners and they have to kind of equal 100%. And so the 4 burners are work, so as an entrepreneur, it's your business or whatever, your family. So that could include your wife and your kids and your mom and dad or whatever, friends, and your health. And this was like another one of these instant aha moments for me, because I had always kind of struggled with the fact that I was burned out a lot and couldn't quite put my finger on it. And when I started thinking about it, this 4-burner theory, it's dead on. If you work more hours, you have to take something away from one of these other 3 burners. You might not turn it off completely, but when I worked more, I neglected my health more. And when I worked more, I spent less time with my wife and couldn't figure out why she wasn't as happy as she used to be. And, neglected my friends and wondered why, they would say, why don't you call me anymore? And all these different types of things. And the reality is as you continue to turn up that work burner, it can only work for so long. At some point, you've neglected your health and your friends and your family, and it starts to really affect the work burner as well. And so one of the things I've really been working on over the last couple of years since being introduced to this theory is trying to be as balanced as I can. It'll never be perfect. I'll never be 25, 25, 25, but I'm sure as heck not like 80% work and, my poor wife is down to like 3%. And we try to, to do things a little bit more equitable, and it just, and it makes sense. And so since doing this, like I'm working fewer hours, but I'm more productive. I'm using that traction model on top of that to be even, to kind of put a magnifying glass on that productivity, and generally happier. Our sales, like I said, are higher than they've ever been. Our profit margins are higher.
Yeah.
And I just enjoy life more because I force myself to, like, after I get done recording this podcast, I do have one meeting after this, but I'm going to go for a walk. It's like a beautiful day here in Las Vegas as we record this, and go with my wife to do that. And we try to do that every day now, and it gets me out. And these are things that I just neglected because I always be like, it's easy to make an excuse. Like I got to work. And I grew up in that environment too with an entrepreneurial dad, and it was always like the trump card. Like it always felt like Dad, I want you to help me with this, or it's a badge of honor. I got to work. And so I grew up in that environment too, and it made it very easy to just constantly make that an excuse. But that's all it really was, is an excuse.
Definitely. Well, thank you for sharing that. I mean, I like that 4-burner theory. I wrote that down: work, family, friends, and health, because I remember seeing a pie chart or someone joking about this in college. It was on Facebook or something, where it's like, social life, like relationship, good grades, like pick 3 or no, pick 2. Sorry.
Pick 2. Yeah.
Pick 2. Like you don't get all of them, right?
You're not a 3-legged stool is the problem. So
the 3-legged stool. You're not going to get like perfect sleep and good grades and get to go to all the parties and have a 6-pack. Like you got to balance your time.
100%.
But that's something that so many entrepreneurs struggle with, because we talked about this on another show. Like recently, I think Deborah King talked about our work is our identity. And we identify as our work oftentimes, where that's all we do. And like our relationships suffer, our health suffers. And I think that's the challenge for all of us now. It's becoming more prevalent now with like entrepreneurs reading 4-Hour Workweek and understanding like, oh, I want a lifestyle business. I don't want to work 100 hours a week for the rest of my life. Like that's not my definition of success.
Yeah.
Right. So
absolutely.
So it sounds like you're doing a much better job now, which, I mean, maybe at that point in time, like that's what you wanted to do or had to do to get the business to where you got it. But now you're starting to scale back your own personal time and you're letting your team run with it, which is obviously working very well for you with the higher profit margins and less of your own personal time invested.
Yeah. And I think, there's definitely some to what you just said, but there's also just being, honest and transparent. It's also that I just didn't know any other way. I kind of grew up in that environment and always had a kind of a chip on my shoulder with something to prove, and felt like if I worked harder or more, which meant more hours, that was going to be the brute force way I was going to tackle the problem, and didn't necessarily realize that I was actually doing myself a bigger disservice than a service. And there's another great quote that I love. I think it was Warren Buffett, or maybe it was Bill Gates, but busy is the new stupid. So we always,
I love that.
Try to pack our calendars and say, oh, I'm busy. Like that was always, the answer that I gave to everybody whenever they ask how you're doing. I'm so busy. I'm so busy. And you realize like how dumb that is, like, cause it just, you keep on filling yourself with all these obligations and your calendar with time, and don't leave any time left for yourself. And then you are too busy, and that's just stupid. Overcommitted.
For sure. No, that's so true, man. And like half the time people will ask me and they're like, hey, I'm sure you're really busy. And I'm like, actually, I'm just like watching the dog poop in the backyard. Like I'll joke. I'm like, I swear, I'm just sitting back here. I've been here for 30 minutes. Like I have nothing on my calendar today, because we may have talked about this. Yeah, we did talk about this on your show, the scorecard method that I use, for example, right? And you were joking like, how many points do you get for talking to me today?
Right.
I was like, oh, 2. So, I mean, when you have that kind of method and you understand what's important to you, you start to ask those questions, because it may feel like you're wasting time if you have 8 hours of blank space in the day and maybe 1 hour with, going on a walk with your wife. It may feel like there's something you could be doing with your business until you take a step back and understand like, wait, this is my life. Like my wife is important to me, right? Like happy wife, happy life.
Absolutely.
As the quote goes. And so you understand like, okay, I need to actually spend more time doing the things that I love, which means putting systems and people in place to manage the stuff that I don't want to personally spend 80 hours a week doing.
Yeah. And I think the other part to that, that 8-hour day that you're just sitting around watching the dog poop, you get to think. That's another thing that's really missing in today's day and age, right? When I was younger,
you had time to think.
You had time to think. I would have a commute, and there wasn't an iPhone to take into the toilet with me to everything you do now. There's some other thing it's just attached to you, and you start thinking or at least for me, what I've realized, and I know I'm super addicted to my electronic devices. I find myself doing this all the time. As soon as my mind starts to drift and I feel like I'm not thinking about anything, I go to the electronic device, pull up a Twitter or a Facebook, and just look for something to occupy my mind, which now I'm hyper aware of this and start to try to get rid of this stuff out of my life, to start trying to do the think thing again. And it's really important. I mean, we just drove across the country, for instance. We had what I call windshield time, which is another thing I used to have a lot of. When I was younger, I had a long commute. Yeah. You're just looking at the windshield. And again, back in those days, there wasn't a computer sitting on your dash. And I drive a Tesla. There's a damn computer more powerful on my dash than there was at my office back when I was younger.
Can't get away from it now. Yeah.
Can't get away from it. And it's just, and there's streaming radio stations and podcasts and all these things. And there used to be a time where I would just turn off the radio and think, or I found that to be, really valuable planning and thinking time that is just evaporated from my life. And so we've talked about several things here today, ways to help with that. And I know I've done several things lately to help with that.
That's really great. I wrote that down, windshield time. I mean, I think back, I just turned 30 last year, and I think back to when we were kids, my dad had a custom van and we'd go on a road trip. We drove to Canada from Texas. We've been to Arizona. Nice. Awesome. Oh my gosh, so much windshield time. But to be fair, they did have a TV, and I think we hooked up a Nintendo 64. Nice. So we were able to play, and I had a Game Boy, play Pokemon Red version or whatever. But even then, those games, kids today would not be able to play Pokemon Red version, or it's just
it'd be too boring,
mind-numbingly boring, right?
You should see Pong, man. That's what I had to deal with, Pong and Galaga. So,
well, I love what you said earlier, talking about Pong, where you said you felt like a ping pong ball. That really resonated, because as a solopreneur, and I know I'm taking it a little bit back there, but
no worries,
bouncing around all day, man. We do that all the time, right? One thing to another. Yeah. When you have a team, they're not down for being the ping pong ball anymore. No. So I'm writing down a lot of great nuggets here, and then. One tip for the audience that's been helpful for me, I will just leave my phone at home and take the dog on the 10, 15-minute walk. And I'm forcing myself to have that windshield time that I otherwise wouldn't have. And it's cool. I'll be talking to myself. I'm okay, so my podcast is going pretty good. I have this conversation with Mike coming up. I'm excited about that.
You got 2 more points for that coming up, so.
I can't wait. Let's talk about it. Yeah. Bring the value, man. Any ideas? Because the phone is addicting for sure, but as long as you become aware, you can start to address the problem.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I have a hard time leaving the phone behind, but that's how addicted I am, and I know it. And so I do force myself to do that. And typically I'll do it when I'm going for a speed walk or a run or a walk run or something where I'm just trying to get just pure exercise. I also I find that there's an exertion level line where when you're X amount of exertion that you can no longer also do Facebook or Twitter or whatever, right? If you're running, it's hard to run and be on that, or if you're walking really quickly or sweating and just and so it starts to clear your mind. For me, kind of forces me to do that. And also when I'm doing that, it's a pain in the butt to have that thing jiggling in my pocket. So I just leave it behind. So
that's a great tip too. I mean, I've noticed that when I jump on a treadmill or even go for a jog, it's kind of annoying. I end up holding my phone in one hand, and it's just not really optimal. The only downside is you don't get to listen to music or something or a podcast while you're jogging, but you get thinking time. So it's a win-win.
Yeah, absolutely. I've actually, I have an Apple Watch. And so I use an Apple Watch with the earbuds, and that lets me get some music. Cause I really like to exercise to music personally. Yeah. And it's interesting to me, when I have the music going, that this is just a really weird personal quirk that I don't believe most people listening have this problem. But if I have complete silence, my mind races faster than if I have music going. I'm listening to music and my thoughts are actually kind of dead into it, where I work better. If I just have a 30-minute run or a walk or whatever with absolute complete silence, then my mind will it's kind of like the rabbit hole of getting into Wikipedia. I'll be thinking about the Mongolian Empire, or something.
You'll see some conspirity theory about like hiding aliens or something.
Yeah. So it gets, everyone's different, but the important thing is that you're getting away from the quote unquote work, and and there's just so many studies about how being active and getting away from the screen is helpful. Like there's a reason that this stuff exists, that these studies exist, and I think we just choose to ignore them because, again, you keep making excuses. Of I got work to do.
Yeah, that's so true. And there's just so many things that we have to figure out as entrepreneurs. I mean, building a business, scaling a business, getting customers, retaining them, getting referrals, hiring people, training people, and physical fitness and balancing your life. It just becomes so much to manage. And so they don't teach us any of this stuff in school, right? Like they never taught us about.
I'm not sure they teach us much of anything in school.
No, I just talked about that. Someone was like, hey, if you had to tell yourself something 10 seconds, in the past, what would you say? And I was like, maybe reconsider that college degree, because I really don't know the 4 years that I spent there. I made some friends and I learned a couple things, but what can you learn in a marketing class today that you can't learn in YouTube videos, right? YouTube University, you can learn so much. So yeah, I totally agree with you there. That's like, school, some things that you're learning there, you don't even learn how to learn. You're just memorizing stuff, which is not really good learning.
Yeah. I mean, I personally, I didn't go to college. And so, and it's interesting, if we had kids, I probably would advocate that they do go to college. I think that it's important. So it's kind of like, I'm on both sides of that
fence. Like a catch-22. Yeah. I can see both sides of it for sure.
I think that what I perceive to be the most valuable thing about college, I see it's like a gateway to adulthood, right? So you leave your parents' house and now you have a few years of transition into being an adult. You can do stupid things and kind of get away with it, but you realize as you're going through with that,
you have to take responsibility.
You have to take responsibility, grow up, et cetera.
Yeah.
So I think that's important. I also think that you make friendships that are like lifelong friendships. I mean, you got college buddies that if you need a favor, you can call them and they'll just do it. And those things can be really important in business and in life in the future. So I didn't have those types of relationships and kind of regret it. And I also think that, it can be a great place to start your first business. So if you are the entrepreneurial type and you see a lot of some of the biggest businesses in the history of mankind, like Microsoft, for instance, started with people who were in college. They started the business in college with college friends and developed the biggest businesses in the world. And I think that, I look back at my life in just business and looking at like other people who have been in college and the connections they have and like how those things marry each other, and they might not even realize it even subconsciously, but I see it because I didn't go to college and realize like how valuable those things are. And so I don't know. I still think it's good. I just personally didn't have the opportunity to go to college. It wasn't viable for me. So
right. I can see both sides of the coin. I mean, I see plenty of people who abused it. They just partied, they squandered their parents' money. And then I see the people who maybe they worked 2 jobs to put themselves through college and they didn't have time to go to parties because they had work or they had class or homework. And I see a few like valuable points in both cases. But then I also see the people who didn't go to school, for example, they got their real estate license earlier. They got into the game faster. Yeah. They built their empires by the time I figured out what I wanted to even focus on, right? And so I kind of regret that at times too. I'm like, if I had just started real estate 4 years sooner and stopped wasting time, like going to geography or geology class and learning about, I don't even remember the rocks that I learned.
Right.
Nor do I'm not even interested in, right? So
on trivia night, it comes in handy.
Yeah. I'm really bad at trivia night. Yeah. So I always mix up. I'm like geography. Like I mix up the words and stuff, but I mean, I guess the best pro is that I have great grammar and I am a grammar Nazi. Like I have very good spelling and I know when people misspell stuff, but like, is that really that important? I mean, I know successful people who sometimes
it's someone who's a horrible speller and
my girlfriend misspells like some words all the time. And I'm like, is it a typo at this point? Like your phone just thinks that that's what you want to type, or like, are you legitimately just misspelling this?
I mean, English is complicated. Like there's like 3 different ways to spell too.
Oh my gosh, it is. And I have foreign parents. My dad's from India. My mom's from Mexico. Nice.
Okay.
My dad grew up speaking English, and this isn't even about me. I need to be interviewing you, but
no, it's okay. Like, I love conversations like this.
It's just interesting, man. Like my mom says spaghetti instead of spaghetti because like Spanish, it's like Spanish. You always add that to the beginning in many words. So it's just interesting to see like English is freaking hard if it's not your first language.
I actually think that that's some of the best real world experiences, like being a child of immigrant parents, just having that culture background. It's something I didn't really realize until I started traveling the world myself.
Yeah.
Lived in a foreign country for 3 years speaking Spanish. So I can definitely understand the spaghetti thing or the shrimps thing.
The struggle. Yeah.
They always call them
or
shrimps.
whenever my mom says sheets, like bed sheets
Right.
or beach, like it's just really funny. It sounds like another word. Let's just say.
Right. Yeah. No, but I mean, it's a good experience, and you got to grow up in that environment. And I think that I don't know. I just think it's something that a lot of Americans, unfortunately, are missing from their lives.
Yeah, and I think travel is a huge thing for just opening your eyes to the different cultures. Because I mean, a lot of friends that I have, American based, like they never left, they've never traveled, maybe even never left the state. They just don't have that perspective of like, oh, there's different languages and this. And you don't make fun of people who don't speak perfect English anymore when you go to a new country where you're like,
100%.
Damn, I don't know a word of Japanese, right? You're like, what are they saying? And the kids 2 years old, like speaking 3 languages, it makes you think twice before making fun of someone who may not speak your language perfectly, who didn't study it as a first language. And so I think you just learn way more. You get new ideas. That's how all these ideas spread, right? Like lean manufacturing, Toyota in Japan, like supply chain. We have to cross-pollinate ideas in order to grow and scale and just become more of a well-rounded person.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, example you said with the perfect English is so funny because when you travel the world, a lot of people do speak English. And the first thing you hear that this is like so common. It's like, I'm so sorry for my bad English. And like their English is like better than yours. Like, what is wrong with you? Your English is like,
I'm like, hold on, you speak 4 languages and your English is perfect. Like, I took Spanish my whole life and I still am not comfortable speaking it.
Like, it's really interesting but I think that those lessons have really helped a lot in business too, to bring it full circle. And so when you start, like right now, we're basically a global company. We have people employed all over the world. We've traveled all over the world for e-commerce into China, Hong Kong, obviously Canada, which isn't really traveling outside the country, but it's kind of like a cheap cheap shot, cheap international trip, but a lot of places in Europe, and so it's really helped. Those skills have helped significantly in business, and it helps you. You're talking about the language barrier thing. Just again, be more tolerant. It helps you realize that the United States isn't the only place in the world that our customs and the things that we do aren't the way that it is everywhere, and to not only be open-minded about this, but embrace it. And so for me, it's fun and interesting to like learn these little idiosyncrasies about our Philippines team and, the things that they do. And I find it fascinating. Yeah,
that's such a good point you bring up. And I mean, it makes you feel so small in the world because, I mean, a lot of times, we think of like, oh yeah, America, like greatest country, whatever. And you go to other places and you're like, oh my gosh, this place is awesome. Their public transportation. Like I'm from Houston, Texas, right? You got to drive everywhere. Like our public transportation is terrible. And you go to places where like, Japan, for example, so efficient, so clean, like everything's so organized. How do they do it? You have an appreciation for other places. Cause I guess I heard someone mention this as well. I never really stopped to think of like how relatively young America is compared to some of these established places that have been there for so much longer, right? Like China and Japan and I mean, Europe in general. And so they've had longer times to develop like their, their infrastructure and just different cultures and things like that. And I don't know, it's just really interesting. Maybe I should take a second look at history because that was another subject I didn't pay attention to much in high school.
No, it's fascinating because we're obviously off on a rabbit hole, but this is like the fun stuff I love talking about.
Same here.
It's so interesting. When I grew up, I mean, before I had traveled at all, the same thing we're talking about, like Americans are very high on themselves and think that it's the best country in the world and they do nothing wrong.
Right.
And clearly I think this is a great place to be. I can literally live anywhere in the world I want to be and have before and have come back. And this is where we want to spend our time. And so I'm not saying it's, a bad place to live or a bad country by any means, but I think that we've lost our way in terms of some of the things you just mentioned. Like you go to Japan and it's like super clean. I mean, what a fascinating country that is. Or, just some of the things that, I've seen in Scandinavia, for instance, and, take some of the best parts of that. And also I've been to other places in the world where it makes me incredibly appreciative of all the stuff that we have here, because there are, most of the places in the world, can hold a candle to the US. And so, but, I think we have lost our way in terms of like arrogance, and it's the only way, because then you stop learning, which is unfortunate.
I agree. I mean, and I feel like I've got, we talked about it, the Mexican Indian family. Like I never really felt like, maybe race. I didn't have like a whole lot of racism or anything, I guess, growing up. But at the same time, and I know we're going down the rabbit hole, but again, I love all this kind of conversation because it makes us who we are as business owners and people, which is how we bring ourselves forward to everything that we do. But it's just interesting to see. And I think that like my brother had a lot of like white American friends that, you know, their parents are doctors and very successful and big houses. And I had a lot of the poor friends. I was joking. I was like, I made friends with like the wrong kids at our school. We're like broken families and like kid went to rehab. You know, like I don't even know my friends like from middle school and high school just went off in crazy directions, like grew marijuana and got kicked out of college, like the whole thing, right? But those differentiations in friendships and people, all those experiences make you who you are. But I do agree that a lot of the American friends and stuff, like we always say like, oh, America, freedom, like awesome, we're the best. But then you go to other places and you're like, oh my gosh, like they're so simple here. Or I love the siestas in like Spain or whatever. I think just for anyone who's listening, who I'm not saying one's better than the other or like we're not as awesome as we think. Cause I'm always like, yeah, America, you know, like Team America. That's an awesome, funny movie. But at the same time, we have to understand like we're not ego, right? Ego is something that's very important. My girlfriend told me to read that chapter in Jay Shetty's book because sometimes I get a little too excited of my accomplishments and maybe I come across as braggadocious a little bit. But we tend to do that many times, and we need to just kind of humble ourselves and understand that, like, dude, there are other people in other places that have done amazing things, and we're not the center of the universe. As much as we like to feel that way, when you are a small dot in another country and you don't know a single word, you realize how small of a person you are, and I guess it kind of puts things in perspective a little bit. Did you ever feel that way when you traveled?
The big thing wasn't just traveling; was living in another country. We lived in Costa Rica for 3 years. And, you know, I went down there as an American, hadn't traveled very much and just kind of being very set in my ways. And you know, here we are surrounded by people who are making $500 a month, working 12-hour days, 6 days a week. That's like the standard work week there and the standard pay. And they had usually a 60-minute or like 1 to 2 hour commute each way to get there, like on a bus.
The work ethic is insane.
On top of everything else. But they were happy. Like they were so happy, like always smiling and high-fiving, joking around. As I was like learning the language a little bit more, we got to be friends with them and stuff. And at some point I realized, and this kind of goes back to some of the 4-burner theory stuff, but like what the hell is wrong with me?
Right.
You know, like, I mean, like what have I like learned in these customs and like these ways that I was brought up that like nothing is ever good enough, or, you know, you're constantly striving for a bigger house and a bigger boat and a bigger stereo and a nicer watch and, you know, whatever. Like, I mean, and obviously like these things are good to have to some extent, but like, it was definitely a big wake up call for me.
Yeah.
Just realizing that like I was making myself miserable trying to get all these things that I thought that I needed. And that was probably the first big breakthrough of my life in terms of, you know, just thinking differently. I was about your age at that point. You said you just turned 30. I turned 30 living there 10 years ago. And that was awesome. You know, really just a big crossroads. Looking back at my life was those years I spent there and those experiences. And it really changed everything about the way that I think about things. And it took a few more years of, you know, because you can't just go from where you were to something completely different overnight. And so it took some, you know, thinking through things and new experiences and building upon things on top of that to really kind of get to where I'm at today. And I'm sure 5 or 10 years from now, I'll think a little bit differently as well. But the biggest pivot was in that moment.
Did you ever hear about that parable of the Mexican fisherman? I think it was in maybe the 4-hour work week. I'm not sure.
I don't think so.
So I'm going to share my screen just so you can read through it as I do. But this is like the perfect point, I think, to talk through it. It's like really short, but it has a really cool punchline. So can you see my screen?
Yep. The Mexican fisherman and the investment banker.
Yeah. So basically here, what it says, and I'm just going to read it for our audience, is an American investment banker was at the pier of a small coastal Mexican village when a small boat with one fisherman docked. Inside the small boat were several large yellowfin tuna. The American complimented the Mexican on the quality of his fish and asked how long it took to catch them. The Mexican replied, only a little while. The American then asked why he didn't stay longer and catch more fish. The Mexican said he had enough to support his family's immediate needs. The American then asked, but what do you do with the rest of your time? The Mexican fisherman said, I sleep late, fish a little, play with my children, take siestas with my wife Maria, and stroll into the village each evening where I sip wine and play guitar with my amigos. I have a full and busy life. The American scoffed. I have an MBA from Harvard. This is like exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah.
It can help you, he said. You should spend more time fishing and with the proceeds, buy a bigger boat. With the proceeds from the bigger boat, you could buy several boats and eventually you'd have a fleet of fishing boats. Instead of selling your catch to a middleman, you could sell directly to the processor, eventually opening up your own cannery. You could control the product, processing, and distribution, he said. Of course, you would need to leave this small coastal fishing village and move to Mexico City, then Los Angeles, and eventually to New York City, where you will run your expanding enterprise. It's almost over, but this is the best part coming up. The Mexican fisherman asked, but how long will all of this take? To which the American replied, 15 to 20 years or so. But what then? Asked the Mexican. The American laughed and said, that's the best part. When the time was right, you could announce an IPO, sell your company stock to the public, and become very rich. You would make millions. Then what? The American said, then you could retire, move to a small coastal fishing village where you could sleep late, fish a little, play with your kids, take siestas with your wife, and stroll to the village in the evenings where you could sip wine and play guitar with your amigos.
That's awesome.
So, dude, I was like, this is the perfect thing because, like, we're chasing bigger goals, more money, more things. And then we think we're going to retire and go back to these things that we should be enjoying now.
Yeah.
And so I didn't want to like take too much time away from our interview, but I was like, this is the perfect place to share that parable. And if you just Google, for those listening, the Mexican fisherman parable, you can find it. And it's just, when I read that, I was like, holy crap, this is it all along. Why am I trying to get to some level of financial success without building that into my life up front? And so it's just really cool to talk about all this stuff. And it sounds like you had that experience in Costa Rica where you saw things a little differently. Like, how are they happy and they're working so many hours a day? They're only making $500 a month, but they're happy. And I feel maybe unfulfilled and I'm making pretty good money and I'm working so much and I'm working to achieve some crazy goals. It kind of puts things in perspective, right?
100%. And I'm going to steal this Mexican parable thing. I'll definitely be using this in the future. I think that this is brilliant.
That is the perfect example.
Yeah. And it's really
laugh when I read that punchline because you're like, dude, that's exactly
it's perfect. I mean, and it kind of goes to that 4-burner theory thing I was talking about, right? So, I mean, I feel like I've done a much better job of this as of lately because I know that I can go do more things. It isn't a question of opportunity out there. What I've also discovered is you can drown yourself in opportunity. Right? Like, it just, everything as an entrepreneur, you can look at everything as you drive down the street. There's like, I could open a McDonald's. I could open a Subway. I could do a storage unit. I could get into apartment buildings. I could, flip empty lots. I mean, like, I can go down to the courthouse and buy deeds off the courthouse step. I could be doing options trading right now. I could be getting into, oil investments or, whatever, like cryptocurrencies. I mean, all kinds of crazy stuff. There's never a lack of opportunity out there. It's just that if you try to do too many of those things, you literally drown yourself in opportunity. You suck up all of your personal capital and resources I was being kind of talking about, crank up that work burner and forget everything else. And you come out the other side of it with no Maria to go on a siesta with. Right. She's like, F you, I'm out of here.
Maria's gone.
Yeah, Maria
she takes the guitar.
That's right. Maria takes her guitar or your guitar and leaves. And that's
definitely no way to live.
Right.
I love that. There's no Maria and she takes your guitar. And if you just think about like burners, I just think about burners and you're making like maybe canned beans in one and like something else in another. If you ignore the rest, you're going to have burnt, spoiled food that you can't eat or won't enjoy anyway.
Absolutely.
Because you're killing those relationships and parts of your life that need to be important. So very good stuff that we're covering here. I mean, this is something that every entrepreneur needs to hear. And it may be the right timing for certain entrepreneurs that are kind of starting to go down that whole building that Mexican fisherman empire. And I'm going to move to LA and then New York. And then what, right? Just keep asking. And then what? And then what? Like, if you ask why, and you really dig into like, what's your why, you might find that maybe the goals that you're working towards may not even really be what ignites you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and the answer is, and the thing that I also realized, back in the day, the first lesson I learned, that kind of Costa Rica thing, was that like, the appetite was insatiable. Like, it was never going to be enough. Like the things you think are the goal, like, I just want this one next thing. And then I'll be happy. Right. I'll get it and I'll be happy. So it's like, I'm going to go from a 3,000 square foot house to a 6,000 square foot house. And then I'll be happy, or get the vacation home, or go get this Corvette, or, whatever that thing is. Like, there's always some other thing that everybody always wants next. And you kind of feel like if I just had these things, I'll be happy. And then you get those things and you're going to want some other things. And I started kind of realizing that part. And a friend of mine just gave me a book that probably explains this in detail. I haven't had a chance to read it yet. She just gave it to me, called The Relationship of Money, that I think gets into this specifically. Curious to read it just to see it from a different point of view. But, I'm at a point in our life right now, like we actually live in the smallest house we've ever lived in. It's kind of funny. And
I love it. You're just simplifying, right?
Simplify. I mean, at one point we like simplified down to just the RV, and I realized that was a little bit crazy. That was a little bit nuts. But it also told me, when we lived in a van for a year, and there was nothing that I ever wanted. And that was like, kind of putting it, just to kind of, it was more of an experiment than anything. But
right.
In terms of things, like I was never like, oh man, I wish I had whatever the hell it would be. Like I felt like I had everything that I needed and enjoyed. We had a really great time, traveling around and got to see outdoors a lot more and et cetera, et cetera. But I mean, you are in really tight quarters, and I get along with my wife really well. But when you have to like shift and shimmy your position of your body to get past each other, it's a little bit tight. So we've upgraded a little bit to a little bit bigger house, and we got a really nice lot. Like we have a lot of outdoor space, which I really appreciate, especially being here in Vegas. But at some point you have to be content and happy with some level of things and not continue to, at some point, you want to retire. Right. And so like, we really kind of shifted the focus of, okay, well, like if we certainly like the house that we have might not have been the dream house I would have thought of at 30, but it's everything that we need. And it like allows us to have all this other flexibility in our life. Like now the level of stress I have is way down. Spend way more time with my wife, with my friends, on myself. I take time again to go, do other things, because like putting things in that perspective, like our expenses and our, needs have shrunk so much that it's like almost laughable. It's like, I mean, it feels like I'm a billionaire, when you like put things in that perspective. And the reality is that if we had a house that was, and this is another thing I think you have to kind of go, some of these things you have to go through. You can listen to us talk about it all day long.
You have to go through it yourself.
You have to go through it. Because like if I was hearing this when I was 25, I'd
let me see for myself. Let me buy
the bigger house. But I can tell you from my perspective, we've owned those homes. Like all I am, I'm like depressed and lonely in them. Like my wife is in another wing of the home, and I have to like hit the intercom button to like reach her or call her to like, what room are you in or whatever.
Right.
And it's neat to like,
it sounds cool
in the home. It sounds cool, but like, it isn't really all that cool. And then you have like empty rooms in the house. It's more to clean. It's more to maintain.
You're so right about
the mortgage.
That.
It's like all these other things you gotta furnish each room, and you gotta like, I mean, it's funny, like even hearing myself talk through this stuff out loud, because I'm sure lots of people out there
they're like, that sounds great.
That sounds great. People think it's just crazy, whatever. I think you're going to get to kind of see yourself. But like what we have now, it's like, it's so manageable. Like it feels like super homey. And like, again, and it gives us, we like to travel. We like to, do other things. So like, we don't feel bad leaving this place behind to go on a trip or whatever. I mean, when pandemic's back, gone again, when we can go do those things. And so it just, all of it is, works really well for us. And I think that's the thing. And when you stop trying to impress other people, or even trying to impress yourself to some level, because I think a lot of it for me was that, and just be happy with, some, whatever it is, and get that, and stop trying to necessarily go to the next level. And I'm not saying like, don't run another business or don't keep on trying to be successful. I mean, but the material thing part of it, like it will, if you don't put yourself in the right mindset, I promise you, it will never end. You will never be satisfied. You will always want another vacation home or a better car, you're going to end up with like Jay Leno's garage or whatever, because like you want all these things.
Every single car in the world. Every car.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Like, at some point, like those are going to get auctioned off or sold off by some other family member or whatever, because like you're the only one that really cares about that crap, and it doesn't really mean anything. So,
right. No, the word that you said there that I'd like to highlight, and it's so powerful, is insatiable. I mean, just never satisfied, always hungry for more. Because I mean, I have tasted a little bit of the success that I was looking for. Like, oh, if I hit 10,000 a month, okay, what if I hit 25? What about 30,000 a month? Yeah. And as it continues to go up, it's like, well, now you want 50, then you want 100. Like, when does it ever end? And so I guess the power of podcasts and just connectivity, I know while the phone can be bad, on the plus side, I think I've become attuned to this information so much faster than many others who maybe are double my age and they had to go through all those things. Like now I'm like, oh, I see the red flags. Like I ask myself the questions and I know that I don't want all those things. Like when I have a vision board with like a Lambo on it and a cool house, it's got a cool mansion on it, of course, and a jet, but I like the idea of it, of being able to have the freedom and flexibility. But you're so right that, I can't imagine the responsibility to keep a 10-bedroom house furnished and, air conditioned in the summer and just the maintenance. And I have a friend who does a landscaping business and they have clients like that who spend 50, 60,000 a year just maintaining the shrubs and stuff. I'm like, dude, this is insane.
Yeah.
When will it ever end? And I think for people who travel, you'll understand this more. Like when I went to Asia in 2017 with just a backpack, it was a big backpack, an Osprey. I had like 4 t-shirts and 3 pairs of shorts that I was just washing and reusing the whole time. Yep. Like every picture I had like 1 of 3 shirts probably. And it was so fun because it was the experience and it was just really that minimalistic lifestyle. And you're in Vegas, right? So unfortunately, Tony Hsieh passed away recently, but with Zappos, the CEO, I remember reading in his book or hearing an interview of him, how he was like a millionaire or multimillionaire or billionaire. I can't remember the exact number, but he was living in like a trailer, like an RV park, basically, because he's like super simple and minimalistic and didn't care about the stuff.
Yep. So I've definitely never been happier in that regard. You mentioned the backpack. That's literally how we travel now.
I love it.
It's funny because like I did it the opposite way. Usually college kids that are broke, that's the way that they travel because like that's all they can afford. I used to travel with like the big suitcase that I would check in and like bring my whole life with me. And now if it doesn't fit in the backpack, it doesn't come with me.
That's so powerful.
No matter, we just went on a 2-month trip. It was all in the backpack. If it didn't fit in the backpack,
it didn't go.
It didn't go.
All you need really, maybe a phone for memories and like a charger, and that's it. The phone can replace the camera in many cases, and the memories are what will last a lifetime, right? If you lose all the stuff you have, for everyone listening, like the only thing I would take, in a fire, like I think Tony Hsieh actually said this in an interview. They're like, if a fire happened, which I guess, well, that's crazy because that actually happened. But they mentioned like if something were to catch on fire, like what would you grab? And he's like, I don't know, I guess my phone maybe. Like that would be the only thing he grabbed. For me, it would be my pets and my girlfriend and my phone maybe. But like I can't think of anything. Everything's replaceable.
I definitely live by that mantra for sure. My life is in the cloud. So like my computer is meaningless. Like anything that's important digitally is already in the cloud. So like certainly my pets or pet. We have a dog, and my wife would certainly.
Is that your German Shepherd in the corner that I see?
That's picture? Actually that's the old one.
The old one
that was a version 1.0. We have 2.0 now running around here somewhere.
Another German Shepherd?
Yeah, another German Shepherd.
Awesome.
I had one as a kid, and then the one that's in the corner here was the one that my wife and I had for 12 years, and then we got another one now we've had for a little while. So
I love it.
So certainly would grab him and the wife, but I think
everything else can be replaced.
Yeah, everything else can be replaced. I think the things I would go for second would be like the things that are complete pain in the ass to replace, like your passport or your driver's license. Like I hate going.
I don't want to go
DMV.
spend like a month figuring that out. Yeah.
Freaking DMV is a disaster. We just had to go deal with the DMV, and it just never gets better.
Yeah, I totally feel you on that. That's hilarious though. Like maybe grab the passport because that would just be a real pain in the ass to replace.
Right. Yeah. It just like it was a pain to get it the first time. I don't want to go do it again.
Yeah. But, if you've ever gotten a visa for like what was it? Maybe Thailand or something, or maybe it was Vietnam. I think that visa process took so long. I had to like get all these documents and do it a month in advance. But I don't know if that was pre-COVID. It'll probably be even harder now post-COVID, right?
We just paid someone to do it for us.
Oh, that's so genius.
Like, I think it was like $50, and they like you just show up at the airport and they've already waited in line and did it all for you.
See, that's the lesson. Just outsource absolutely everything. See, I did that when I still had a day job. So I wasn't thinking at this level. Now I'm at that level where I'm like, wait a second, I shouldn't do this. Let me have my assistant do that.
That's the kind of thing I'll spend money on. Like talk about and that's the nice thing about having money.
You buy yourself time.
You buy yourself time. Right. And
Powerful.
so like, instead of we have the money because we haven't bought all the things. And so like, I hate waiting in lines and dealing with this bureaucratic crap. And I was like, there was a service for $50. Like sign me up. Like
Done.
It wasn't even, it's a no brainer.
You know, what's crazy is like, and I know we got a couple minutes left, but I've just really been enjoying this conversation. I forget where I heard this, but whenever they have like a free Popeyes sandwich or something, and people are waiting in line for 2 hours to get a free $4 sandwich, like they're valuing their time at $2 an hour. Like they don't value their time. Like if you're willing to do that, it's a totally different way of looking at time versus money. And so once you're at this level, you'd rather pay that premium where someone might think you're wasting $50. No, you're saving 3 hours or however long that process.
I got 3 more hours of Vietnam, and Vietnam was a cool freaking place. I couldn't believe how neat that place was.
Heck yeah. You got more time there instead of standing in line waiting around for like a visa stamp or whatever on your passport.
Yeah.
So what's your main focus for this year in 2021? And do you have like 5 goals or like 3 goals that you focus on every day? I know you talked about some of them, but would love to hear like what your main focus is that you're like every day, this is what you're looking at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we've done the traction thing for 2021. I actually don't have the list in front of me.
Yeah, you don't have to share the exact goals.
Go from memory, but we're looking at growing our team. Doing more and more better processes, being able to like document what we're doing more, investing more in the team. Just trying to get them better education. We actually just rolled out also a big mental health initiative, which
it's important.
Wasn't even a part of our original goals for the year, but just realizing that COVID's really been tough on people, and especially in the Philippines. Different countries have dealt with this in different ways, and people live differently in different parts of the world. So in the Philippines, the average person is living in a apartment that's probably about the size of one of our like rooms, right? Like in our home,
right?
It's like basically the size of a bedroom, or maybe 2 of our bedroom. That's like their whole home, their kitchen, their living room, their bedroom, everything. It's like they're living in a small
like
place.
A studio apartment,
studio apartment type size thing, and they're on strict quarantine. Like they just weren't allowed to leave at all. Like once a week, with a special pass, one person from the home could like go to the grocery store. And so I kind of was like, man, like these people feel like, it sounds like they're kind of like in jail, like almost, versus things have been different and hard for us, but always try to put things in perspective, which also makes me feel way luckier and makes me be like, stop complaining, because think of how people in other parts of the world are having to deal with this. But we rolled out a mental health initiative just to make sure I want to make sure people are okay.
I love that.
So we offered to pay for, some professional help for them or medicine if they feel like they need it. And we bought this new business. And so the big thing that we're just trying to learn how to do right now is how do we absorb something so big, because it's the biggest purchase we've ever made. And so just, absorb that into the current team. And also there's a current team that they had. And I've already feel like we've learned a bunch of lessons and just like how to kind of deal with that. Because it's something we want to repeat for sure. I feel like once I'm back down to 10 hours a week again and feel the need to do the next thing, we'll do that. And for me, it isn't because I want to go buy the next car and the next house like we talked about. What I found is that, as I mentioned before, it's kind of my addiction, and I become comfortable with this, or at least acknowledged it. The first step to working on not being an alcoholic is to admit that you have a problem, right?
Yeah.
I think that entrepreneurship and the way that it manifests itself in me is at that same level. I'm not trying to be, I'm always being sarcastic and funny, but I'm actually being serious for one moment, because I feel like it's at that same level. And for me, it's just like, I've tried to go from one extreme to the other, where like I've sold everything in terms of like I'm out of business and I'm just retired, and living that way and realizing that just isn't going to work, because then I'm missing this thing, as you said, like your identity in this way that I can't.
Like what do you wake up for, right?
I can't wake up. I mean, I just can't. I've tried to replace it with something else, and I just can't. I'm just not capable of doing it. It's a part of my ingrained. But what usually ends up happening is when I get back on the horse, it goes the other way, where I'm like
80 hours a week.
And so like I haven't let that happen. We did have a few 60-hour weeks right after we bought the business, and I knew that was going to be the case, because
you anticipated it.
We anticipated it. We traveled across the country to be there on the other side of the country in person, and felt like we only were going to be there for so long and had to really take advantage of that time.
Yeah.
And so like that was one thing I knew going into it, and it was fun, but I immediately put an end to it. Like now that I'm back home, we're back to a 30-hour like normal kind of week, maybe 35 or something. So something that's pretty manageable. But like I've really enjoyed this process and be able to do it in a way where it hasn't stressed me the hell out. I still have had fun with my friends and my family and taking care of myself. And so, I want to make sure that I'm maintaining that as well, scratching the itch and just having good balance. And so for me, this has been this year on a personal level will be the grand experiment of that. And it'll be fun to catch up a year from now and see, because I'm pretty honest and transparent.
I will see that.
Throw myself under the bus if I failed, and talk about how that's gone.
I'd love to hear that, man. I'd love to have you back on the show in a year's time, or sooner, whenever works for you, as long as it doesn't go over 35 hours a week.
Right.
Fits the mold that you were creating for your life and your business. But I mean, so many lessons in here, from traveling in a bag, overseas, and understanding the cultures and selling everything and realizing that that's not going to work for you either. But then you go the other extreme. So kind of finding yourself, like, who are you and what are you interested in? And I think that's something important that all of us we're all on that journey, and we're learning every single day, but we have to be tuned into that to really pay attention. Otherwise, we might go down a 10-year path of acquiring all this stuff and being like that Mexican fisherman.
Yeah.
Or like the Harvard guy who was trying to get him to sell everything and move to New York and all that, when really we have what we're looking for right in front of us. So lots of great nuggets in this, Mike. Where can our audience go to connect with you, to listen to your podcasts and learn more about e-commerce and everything you're up to?
Yeah. So it's ECOMCREW, ECOMCREW, and it's like everywhere it's ECOMCREW. So ECOMCREW.com, ECOMCREW, go search for us on iTunes, ECOMCREW on all the social media platforms. We got lucky and got all the same handles. And if you want to email support@ecomcrew.com, will get to me. There's one more thing, totally shifting gears before we end.
I know you got another meeting, but you already let them know.
I let them know we're going to be a minute late.
Let's do it.
There was something I wanted to bring up in the middle, and we got off on a tangent that we can end with, if you don't mind.
I don't mind. I've got time.
Okay. So we were talking about people and just building a team, kind of giving people goals 13 weeks at a time, et cetera, and letting people kind of do their thing. And, I kind of think like a ping pong ball and other people don't. So the important point I want to bring up that I've realized I think will be helpful for your listeners, huge epiphany for me, was realizing that not everyone thinks the way that I do. You have this, I think it's human nature. Like, you think about things in a certain way, and this comes up often. It's like, I can't understand like how so-and-so, they're so like stupid or whatever, because they don't think this way, or they don't do these things, or whatever it might be.
Right.
But, first of all, not everyone can be the entrepreneur. Not everybody can own the donut shop. Someone has to make the donuts. Someone has to clean the floors. Someone has to like be the regional manager, whatever it might be. And so, first of all, we need these people. Like, as entrepreneurs, like, these people are incredibly important and valuable, not only in our business life, but in everything else that we do in life. Like, when we leave the house, we depend on these people every moment of every day. Like, someone is filling my mailbox with mail, delivers the UPS packages to my front door, stocks the shelves at the grocery store, cuts my hair, gives me a massage, my personal trainer. Like, there's all these different things that you interface with in life, and not everyone will think in the way that you think. And putting these people in a position of success, I think, is our responsibility, right? And so
definitely
adapting the way that you think, not the other way around, to put them in a position to be successful, which will help make you successful and make it a two-way street. And so we do everything that we can, and it's been really enjoyable since I've kind of really had, this epiphany, I guess, of just, it does seem so obvious, right? Like, not everyone thinks the way you think. Well, duh, Mike. But
you have to really actually understand, because you're right. We get tunnel vision, like, oh, why doesn't that person see like me? The most interesting example for me is like politics. Like, somebody's like, if you like this person, I'm unfriending you. And the other person's like, I can't believe anyone even likes that person. It's just, that's a perfect example of like, they see so differently. And I guess politics or religion is like where I go to, but you're right that not everyone thinks the way we do. We need to actually, and it's difficult, right? I can't go inside of your brain and see what you're thinking. So I think communication's key as well, right?
Absolutely. And I think politics is the perfect analogy to this. Yeah, because like, I am I'm not going to get into one side or the other. I promise this is not a political podcast. I don't want to like have the people turn off the radio. But I bet you everyone listening is either very left or right. Like, there's very little in the middle. And I certainly lean one way or the other in a very strong way. And actually, I lean a completely different way than I did when I was younger, by the way, because of all the experiences we talked about. But the thing I think that's super important that I would encourage people I'm begging people basically listening, is to think of, not just immediately call the other people morons, like as you were saying, because they believe the other thing that you do. Think about why they might think that, and at least understand their position. Because they're in a room just as much as you are, surrounded by people that, because now it's so polarized, that like say the same thing, they watch the same news programs, they're around a set of circumstances that teach them these things, or that's their experience. And it isn't that they're stupid or ignorant or any of the other words that go along with this. It's just, it's a different, it's just
all they know.
And if you look at yourself, you probably are in the same bucket. You just don't ever want to realize that, right? It's like, you don't want to think that, oh, well, I'm just as guilty, but from the other way, right? And the reality is that you both can't be right. Something in the middle is probably the right thing. And I hope to God we can get back to something there. And so if you relate that same political thing to your employees, you might find that you can get a lot of success out of that by, again, putting them in a position of success, thinking through their life circumstances and the goals that they want. Everyone's going to be different. There's all these different personality types, and they're all needed. And so instead of looking down upon that or them or what they're doing, embrace it and help them be successful, which will help make you successful in turn. It has been really rewarding for us. And so there's several different examples of this that, just talking about, like, I can't understand like how someone could sit in a chair and do data entry for 40 hours a week. Like, let's say, for instance, it seems like I would jump out the damn window. But like, you need that person to do that. And so, again, just try to find the right people for the right positions and embrace them and put them in a position where if you ask them what they want, they can drive and do those things. So anyway, this is great.
It comes back full circle to just understanding that other people are different than us. We don't all think the same. Opening up your perspective and your horizons by traveling and just getting outside of your comfort zone, understanding that, we're not the center of the attention or the center of the universe. And it's really humbling, I think, just to open up and understand, like, wow, we really don't know as much as we think we know. Yeah. And there's so many opportunities to connect with people and grow. And I mean, learning about different religions and politics and beliefs and like why, understanding and asking, why do you think that? Instead of like, no, you're an idiot. You don't believe the same thing as me. I don't want to be friends with you. I'm deleting you. Asking like, okay, why do you think that? And like, okay, why is that? Oh, well, hopefully you can have like a good argument. Because you're right. Today's day and age, it's like either you're with me or you're against me. There's no middle ground. But that doesn't work in a corporate environment with the team. It's not like, oh, if you don't do everything I say, I'm gonna fire you. It's like a team effort of what tasks do you like? What do you not like? Let's align those a little bit better so everyone's happy to an extent. But Mike, this has been awesome, man. I appreciate your time. I know we're a couple minutes over. Your sister's probably like, man, what's he talking about over there?
I already told her. She's like, thanks for the heads up. So we're good.
Awesome. Any last words or anything else? I'll link everything in the show notes that we talked about, but I really appreciate your nuggets and your time and just your life experience. We don't have to just talk about like business because
no, it's fun. I love having these conversations.
Yeah.
No last nuggets. If you got any questions or, things I've been talking about, just feel free to shoot an email to support@ECOMCREW.com. It'll find its way to me. And
awesome.
Good luck with everybody. Everybody stay safe. Hope 2021 brings back more traveling so we can have some
hopefully
of these experiences.
So. I don't know if you heard about this because I'm recording this on March 2nd and I just saw, like, I was walking outside of this office with my mask on. Someone's like, oh, did you hear? Like the governor said we don't have to wear masks in Texas anymore. So I don't know. We'll see how things go. I already had COVID. Luckily, I recovered and was fine. But let's see how 2021 pans out for sure. Fingers crossed everything goes well. Yeah. I'd love to travel and get on a plane very soon.
I'm looking forward to getting the vaccine.
Yeah, for sure. I know a lot of people are like ready to get that. I mean, my grandma
just thinking about it.
Yeah, my grandma got it. She visited in town. She's feeling much better now. So hopefully we're almost at the end of it.
But we had a pretty bad battle with it. And so it's still recent. I just don't want to get sick again. I mean, it's just
same. I kind of was still worried about it. I was like, well, I don't want to get it again. Like it wasn't very fun. And I feel bad because I gave it to my parents and my girlfriend and luckily everyone's fine. But I mean, we'll see how things go for sure. But I think at the end of the day, as long as we do what we can and we continue to learn and develop every single day, all we can do is all we can do, right? Some things are outside of our control, but
absolutely.
Well, thank you, Mike. This has been fun, and feel free to reach out if I can ever help with anything as well. And I'd love to have you on the show again.
For sure. Be good.
Cool. Thank you.